Hi, my name's Amy Raschuti. It is April. It is National Poetry Month. I like poems, and I happen to have two books about two different very famous poets. The first one is about Emily Dickinson, born and raised in Massachusetts, so I have a very local connection here. It's just called My Uncle Emily. The author is Jane Yolen. The illustrator is Nancy Carpenter, based on a somewhat true event. One day, when we were in the garden choosing flowers for the table, my Uncle Emily gave me a dead bee, a poem from a teacher, something that Emily is like that. And she wants me to see the world one small poem at a time. She calls herself Uncle, but she's really my aunt. She's not like an uncle at all, for she wears long white dresses and never smokes cigars. The uncle is a joke in our family. As for the bee, it is only between the two of us, Uncle Emily and me. I picked an aster and gave it to her. In payment for the poem, I said. She laughed, and in the sun her hair seemed red and shiny as a ladybug's shell, though it's usually just brown as a chestnut burr. An aster for the poem and not for the bee? She asked. We laughed together again as if it was some great joke. Uncle Emily and I often laugh together about things two of us find funny. Things like flies in the cupola, frogs in the bogs, butterflies, which we call flutterbys. But the poem she gave me was not a joke at all. Uncle Emily never jokes about poetry or about poets who she says light lamps. I took the bee and the poem into the house in the quiet of my bedroom. I read what Uncle Emily had written. It was in pencil, not a word crossed out. The bumblebee's religion. His little hearse-like figure, unto itself a dirge, to a delusive lilac. I had so many questions. Do bumblebees have religions? Do they pray to flowers? Do they ride in hearses? I didn't want to take the poem to school, fearing the boys would not understand it, fearing they might laugh at it. Not laugh in a good way, as Uncle Emily and I do, but in a nasty way. I feared that someone bigger than me might say something mean about the poem or about Uncle Emily with a snigger. But Mother said I must take the poem to school, for Uncle Emily had written across the top, for Gilbert to carry to his teacher. Besides, it is not often that Emily Dickinson sends a poem out into the world, Mother says. So I took the poem to Mrs. Howland, my teacher, who read it to the class and held up the dead bee. There was a long silence. No one laughed, but no one understood the poem either, not one. Samuel asked, "Is a bee important enough to be in a poem?" And Thomas called out, "Would a bee have to kneel to pray?" And Margaret said, "Do bees have knees?" I could feel my cheeks growing red. Then at recess, Jonathan, who was much bigger than me, called Uncle Emily a name in a very loud voice that carried across the playfield. He said, "She is a peculiar old maid and a reckless." Reckless? All the boys laughed, but I stopped Jonathan right there, stepping up and hitting him for those words. I had to. He hit me back, and I fell, twisting my ankle. But now he had a big red nose, blossoming on him. I told him so, and he laughed as I said it. Uncle Emily would not have liked me hitting him, but she would have liked a big red rose blossoming on his nose. It was almost a poem. "Thomas Gilbert Dickinson," Mrs. Howland began, her face awful worry, "of all my pupils, that you should fight." I had to stand in the corner wearing a dunce cap, as did Jonathan. I did not care. I love Uncle Emily and will not hear her called names. Then everyone in the class had to write a thank you note to Miss Emily Dickinson for the poem. Jonathan's thank you note was in rhyme, which Mrs. Howland praised. I thought it peculiar, but it was good, too, like one of Uncle Emily's poems, and it made me almost forgive him. My brother Ned came from the town college to walk me home from school. He saw that I limped and asked why. When I told him, he nodded and he carried me on his back. Jonathan meant recluse, not reckless, said Gib, the first person being somebody who cannot stand company, and the other one, somebody who impulsively punches people in the nose. So I impulsively beat Ned on top of his hat until he laughed and called me out to stop. Besides, he reminded me, Uncle Emily often lowers down gingerbread in a basket from her bedroom window for all the neighborhood children. So she is not entirely a recluse. If you had said that to Jonathan, it would have put a lie to him without a fist being raised. I nodded and rubbed my hand against his cheek. I thought him right. I would not want to hurt the person I love best in all the world. I would not. Uncle Emily is the kindest creature. She would not hurt even a fly, which she calls a speck piano. That is something else I do not understand. Flies only have a buzz, not piano keys. But sometimes if I listen very carefully, the fly almost seems to make music up. What an idea! I light up with it like a lamp. Maybe that's what Uncle Emily means when she talks about poetry. So I said not a word all afternoon about why I was limping. Not to Mother or Father or Mattie. Not to Cook either. I did my chores that day, but I could not help limping. I worried that I would be asked, and if I was told them what happened, it would make Uncle Emily cry, that I had hurt someone on her behalf, but no one noticed anything. Grown-ups rarely do. That evening, we went next door to visit. Uncle Emily cut slices from her famous black cake. Aunt Vinnie and my sister Mattie passed the plates around, and when I went up for a second helping, Uncle Emily saw me limp and asked about it, for she notices everything. Poets do that, you know. I glanced at Ned, and he whispered, "Tell her, but carefully." So I told about bringing the poem, about falling down in the yard, but I did not mention what Jonathan said, or the red rose on his nose, or the dunce cap I had to wear all day. I handed Uncle Emily the thank you notes. She liked Jonathan's poem. Everyone said, "Dear, dear." Mother cried, "How brave you are when you were hurt." Aunt Vinnie said, "And a hero for not crying." Sister Mattie gave me a hug. Father said, "You are a man, Gilbert, though you are only 6. Ned just grinned. Uncle Emily put her hand to her mouth and cried out, "Oh, dear Gib, I know you well. Isn't there more to your story?" And everyone said, "More?" They all turned to stare at me, who had a moment before been so brave, a hero, was now somehow something else. I ran out to the garden to sob amid the asters. Not 5 minutes later, Uncle Emily found me, an old envelope in her hand. She thrust it at me. On the back was a poem of hers. I'd never heard it before. "Tell all the truth," it began, "but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies." I read the poem aloud. No lamps lit in my brain. "Do you mean that I should tell the story, the whole story?" she explained, "with certain care, so that the tale comes around to the truth at last?" We tracked into the house, hand in hand. I looked at Uncle Emily. She looked at me with a smile like a Christmas wreath. "There's something else," I gasped. I began, "some things I forgot to say." So I dazzled everyone with the full story, telling the whole truth, but coming around to it slowly, till the last, when I said, even Jonathan agreed that great poet needs thanking, which he did by trying to write his thanks in a rhyme. I ended by reading Uncle Emily's poem with great gusto and understanding. Everyone clapped, but the applause was not half as warming as my Uncle Emily's smile. So based on a very quick event, Emily Dickinson did live in Amherst, Massachusetts. She did have a nephew that she loved dearly. So that's all somewhat based on that and some of her poetry. Good one. I have a really good one next about a poet named Robert Frost, who actually wasn't born in New England, but he lived quite a long time in New Hampshire. And the poem is called "Stopping by the Jungle on a Snowy Evening." I'm sure you've heard of it. The author is Richard T. Morris. It is illustrated by Julie Rowan Zock. So let's see about this one. It's pretty good. "Whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though he will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little hippopotamus might think, pardon me, it's a horse, not a hippopotamus. Who are you? I'm Robert Frost. I wrote the poem." Wow, that's great. A real live writer in our presence, but I don't see any horses around here. It's just me and my hippo. Hippos live in the jungle. The poem is set in the woods. No problem. We'll just change the poem slightly. It can't be that hard. How's this? Whose jungle this is, I think I know. His house is in the village, though he will not see me stopping here to watch his jungle fill up with snow. It doesn't snow in the jungle. To watch his jungle fill up with rain? That doesn't rhyme. To watch his jungle fill up with dough? Dough? Yeah, like cookie dough. And look, the hippo loves it. Can we get back to my poem, please? Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Mr. Frosty, we have a problem. No frozen lakes in the jungle. It's not set in the jungle. Sorry. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Wow, the hippo has fallen asleep. I think we need to jazz it up a little bit. Create a little drama, you know? Let's try this. He gives his harness bells a shake because he's being attacked by a humongous snake. That's terrible. Don't worry. The hippo's going to be fine. He knows karate. This poem is a meditation on nature and life, not snakes, not karate. Okay. No snakes, no karate. But if we don't have some sort of animal mega battle, how does your poem end? It ends like this. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I... Meteor incoming! It's going to hit the frozen lake. There are no meteors in my poem. Tidal wave! My work is ruined. Our only escape is that road ahead. There are two roads, actually. Alien invasion! Two roads diverged into Yellowwood, and I took the one less traveled by. Hey, that's not bad. Run for your lives! Jingle, jingle, jingle. So that's how the poem ended. You have the real poem if you want to hear it, done by Robert Frost. It's a lovely feeling to it. Stopping by the woods on a snowy evening the way Robert Frost wanted it. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though he will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. Thank you. Enjoy National Poetry Month.
Hello, boys and girls. Today I'm reading Earthquack by Margie Palatini and illustrated by Barry Moser. Little Chucky Ducky had just finished swimming his morning laps. He dried off his bill, wiped his 2 web feet, and was letting the water roll off his back when suddenly he heard the ground rumble. He heard the ground grumble. He felt the ground rumble, and then with a stumble, Chucky Ducky went down in a tumble. Oh, good golly, quacked the duck as he got up and unruffled his feathers. The earth is crumbling. The earth is crumbling. Why, it's a quake. I have to warn my friends. Without a minute to waste, Chucky Ducky waddled and flapped and waddled across the meadow where he saw Loosey Goosey. The earth is crumbling. The earth is crumbling. It's a quake, quacked the duck. The goose gave a gander. Are you sure? Asked Lucy, not at all convinced. Of course I'm sure, answered Chucky Ducky. I heard it. I heard what I heard. I felt what I felt. I saw what I saw, and I saw it. And then suddenly, right below their 4 web feet, they heard the ground grumble. And then they felt the ground rumble. And before they knew it, Chucky Ducky and Loosey Goosey were taking a tumble. The earth is crumbling. The earth is crumbling, honked the goose. I tell you it's a quake, quacked the duck. We have to warn our friends. Without a minute to waste, Chucky Ducky and Loosey Goosey waddled and flapped and waddled up to the barnyard. And who should they meet scratching and hatching but Vicky, Nicky, and Ricky Chicky? The earth is crumbling. The earth is crumbling. It's a quake, quacked the duck. Is this some kind of trick, cheap to chick? I heard what I heard, I felt what I felt. I saw what I saw, and I saw it, said Chucky Ducky. Me too, said Loosey Goosey. And then suddenly, right below their 4 webbed feet and 6 little chicken legs, they heard the ground grumble. Then they felt the ground rumble. And before they knew it, they were all taking a tumble. The earth is crumbling, cheep the chicks. The earth is crumbling, honked the goose. I tell you, it's a quake, quacked the duck. We have to warn our friends. Without a minute to waste, Chucky Ducky, Loosey Goosey, Vicky, Nicky, and Ricky Chicky flapped and waddled and flapped in a troop up to the coop where they saw Brewster Rooster. The earth is crumbling. The earth is crumbling. It's a quake, quacked the duck. Sound the alarm, honked the goose. Excuse me, but I only doodle-doo once a day, said the rooster calmly, raking a comb through his feathers. Read my job description. But you just got a crow, cried the 3 little chicks. Yes, said Chucky Ducky. I heard what I heard. I felt what I felt. I saw what I saw, and I saw it. Me too, honked Loosey Goosey. We 3, cheep Vicky, Nicky, and Ricky Chicky. And then suddenly, right below their 4 webbed feet, 6 little chicken legs, and 2 big drumsticks, they heard the ground grumble. And then they felt the ground rumble. And before they knew it, they were all taking a tumble. The earth is crumbling, squawked the rooster. The earth is crumbling, cheep the chicks. The earth is crumbling, honked the goose. I tell you, it's a quake, quacked the duck. We have to warn our friends. Without a minute to waste, Brewster Rooster let out a crow. Cock-a-doodle-doo. So what's new, said Sue Ewe, hoofing it over to the Brewster Rooster with her lamb, Sam, and Pam. Yes, what's the big to-do, grumbled Nanny Goat, not pleased that all the hubbub had awakened Billy the Kid from his afternoon nap. Yeah, you're interrupting my lunch, snorted Iggy Piggy, wiping his snout in a pout. The earth is crumbling. The earth is crumbling, I tell you, it's a quake, quacked the duck. Oh, it can't be that bad, sighed Sam, Pam, and Sue. It sounds nutty to me, said Merle the squirrel, going out on a limb. But I heard what I heard. I felt what I felt. I saw what I saw, and I saw it, quacked the duck. Hogwash, grunted the pig. And then suddenly they all heard a grumble. They all felt a rumble. And then one by one, they all went down with a tumble. Run for the hills, snorted Iggy Piggy. Take to the trees, squealed Merle the squirrel. The doorway, you ninnies, neighed little Billy. So they listened to the kid, and they ran to the door of the big red barn and huddled and cuddled and hoped they were safe from any more rumbling, grumbling, and most of all, crumbling. Now, several yards away, under a sticky thicket, watching all the commotion, was one very hungry weasel. He muttered greedily, licking his lips. Lamb chops, bacon, roast goose, chicken and squirrel stew. Yum, yum. The wormy weasel grinned. My pantry is pretty paltry, but I have an idea that will get their goat and give me one big banquet buffet. So without a minute to waste, the sneaky weasel climbed down from the sticky thicket and made out a menu for the month, and then cleverly disguised himself in his long white winter coat. The earth is crumbling, the earth is crumbling, he shouted, running toward the barn. You know about the quake quack the duck from the doorway? I heard what I heard. I felt what I felt. I saw what I saw, and I saw it, lied the weasel. Brewster Rooster pointed a wing and cocked his head with suspicion. I've never seen you around here before. Who exactly are you? Name's Herman Erman, the weasel said with a sly smile. As it happens, I'm an expert in rumbles and crumbles. In fact, I have a quake-proof hideaway not too far from here. You'll be much safer if you come with me. Yes, yes, we want to be safe, they all said, rushing from the doorway of the big red barn and lining up behind Herman Erman, not knowing he was really a lying, conniving, wily weasel. So off went Chucky Ducky, Lucy Goosey, Vicky Nicky, and Ricky Chicky. Brewster Rooster, Sue Ewe, with the two lambs Pam and Sam. Nanny Goat, Billy the Kid, Merrill Squirrel, and Iggy Piggy. Into the deep, dark, thickest thickets in the woods the group trooped. After a ways and a while, the weasel stopped. He pointed. Down here, he said with a sneer. Vicky, Nicky, and Ricky Chicky took a peep. But that just looks like a hole, cheeped the chicks. A deep, dark hole, noticed Nanny. And it looks like such a long way down, said Sam and Pam. Come now, don't be sheepish, said the weasel, sidling up to Sue and already planning a supper of lamb stew. He was just about to give Chucky Ducky the first shove down the hole when suddenly there was a grumble and then a rumble, and the ground around the weasel started to crumble. First a trip and then a stumble. Right through the thicket, out of his white winter coat. Uh-oh, I think I made a fumble. Well, what a weaselly little fellow, crowed Brewster Rooster, waving his white winter coat. Thank goodness we are safe. But I tell you, it's still a quake, quacked the duck as the earth rumbled, and crumbled all around their feet. Yes, it's still a quake, they all shouted. It's a quake, it's a quake. It's not a quake, said Two Heads, suddenly poking up from the dirt. It's not a quake, they all said. It's just us. The two answered with a wink and a blink. Joel and Lowell Mole. Joel and Lowell Mole, they said, looking at one another. You mean the earth isn't grumbling? Squawked Lucy Goosey, Brewster Rooster, and the three little chickies. You mean the earth isn't rumbling? Squeaked Iggy Piggy and Merrill Squirrel. You mean the earth isn't crumbling? Cried out Nanny, Billy, Pam, Sam, and Sue. No, quake, quack, Chucky Ducky. We don't know anything about grumbles, rumbles, crumbles, or quakes, mumbles the moles, stumbling out from their holes. We're just looking for our cousin, Garrett Ferret. Does anyone know the way to San Jose? We think we took the wrong turn at the Lincoln Tunnel. Wrong turn indeed. So they all showed Joel and Lowell which way to go. And out of the woods And back to the barnyard went Iggy Piggy, Merle Squirrel, Nanny Goat, Billy the Kid, Sue Ewe, her lambs Sam and Pam, Bruce the Rooster, Vicky, Nicky, and Ricky Chicky, Lucy Goosey, and that little quack, Chucky Ducky, who right from the beginning was all wet. The end. Say that.